The relationship between the United States and China, two of the world's largest economies, has been a critical aspect of global politics for decades. However, in recent years, the relationship between the United States and China has deteriorated, leading to a souring of relations that has significant implications for global politics. The historical background of relationship between the United States and China dates back to the early 19th century when American merchants began trading with China. However, the relationship was not formalized until 1979 when the two nations established diplomatic relations. In the early years of the relationship, the United States and China cooperated on issues such as trade and the fight against terrorism. However, tensions began to rise in the early 2000s when China began to challenge America's position as the world's preeminent superpower. China's rapid economic growth and military expansion alarmed American policymakers, leading to a more confrontational approach to China. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping, the former Chinese leader, initiated a series of reforms aimed at opening up the Chinese economy to the world. These reforms led to an unprecedented period of economic growth in China, which has become one of the world's largest economies. However, China's economic growth has also led to increasing competition with the United States, particularly in industries such as technology and manufacturing. The current state of the relationship between the United States and China is marked by increasing tension and competition. The two nations are engaged in a trade war, with the United States imposing tariffs on Chinese goods, and China retaliating with tariffs of its own. The trade war has had a significant impact on both nations' economies, with disrupted global supply chains and decreased global trade. Additionally, the two nations are engaged in a game of military one-upmanship in the South China Sea, with China expanding its military presence in the region, and the United States increasing its military presence in response. The military tensions have heightened the risk of a conflict between the two nations. The United States has also accused China of human rights abuses in Xinjiang, where the Chinese government has been accused of imprisoning over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in re-education camps. The United States has also accused China of suppressing democracy in Hong Kong and engaging in cyber espionage against American companies. These human rights abuses have been a major source of tension between the two nations. Factors contributing to the souring of the relationship. Several factors have contributed to the souring of the relationship between the United States and China, which includes trade imbalances. The United States and China have a significant trade imbalance, with China exporting more goods to the United States than the United States exports to China. The Trump administration's response was to impose tariffs on Chinese goods, arguing that China was engaging in unfair trade practices. The Chinese government has responded with tariffs of its own, leading to a trade war between the two nations. Strategic competition. The United States and China are engaged in a strategic competition for global influence. China's rapid economic growth and military expansion have challenged America's position as the world's preeminent superpower. The United States has responded with a more confrontational approach to China, leading to a shift in the global balance of power towards a more multipolar system. Military tensions. The military tensions between the United States and China have heightened the risk of a conflict between the two nations. China has been expanding its military presence in the South China Sea, constructing artificial islands, and increasing its military budget. The United States has responded with increased military presence in the region, conducting freedom of navigation operations and increasing its military alliances with other countries in the region. The military tensions between the two nations have been a significant factor in the souring of the relationship. Human rights abuses. the United States has accused China of human rights abuses in Xinjiang, where the Chinese government has been accused of imprisoning over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in re-education camps. The Chinese government has also been accused of suppressing democracy in Hong Kong and engaging in cyber espionage against American companies. These human rights abuses have been a major source of tension between the two nations, leading to increased scrutiny of Chinese investments in the United States and restrictions on Chinese companies operating in the United States. Ideological differences. The United States and China have different political systems and ideologies, which has contributed to the souring of the relationship. The United States is a democracy that values human rights, free speech, and individual freedoms. China is a one-party state that prioritizes stability and economic growth over individual freedoms. These ideological differences have led to tensions between the two nations, with the United States accusing China of authoritarianism, and China accusing the United States of interfering in its internal affairs. Implications of the souring relationship. The souring relationship between the United States and China has significant implications for global politics, which includes economic impacts. The trade war between the United States and China has had significant economic impacts on both nations, as well as on the global economy. The disrupted global supply chains and decreased global trade have led to decreased economic growth and increased uncertainty in the global economy. Military impacts. The military tensions between the United States and China have heightened the risk of a conflict between the two nations, which could have catastrophic consequences for global peace and stability. The increasing militarization of the South China Sea and the potential for military conflict in the region is a major concern for global policymakers. Human rights impacts. The human rights abuses in Xinjiang and Hong Kong have raised questions about the future of democracy and human rights globally. The implications of the souring relationship between the United States and China on human rights issues will continue to be felt globally, particularly in countries that rely on Chinese investment and support. Environmental impacts. The relationship between the United States and China also has significant implications for the environment. Both nations are the world's largest greenhouse gas emitters, and their cooperation on climate change is vital to the success of global efforts to combat climate change. However, the souring relationship between the two nations has hindered their cooperation on environmental issues, leading to a slower global response to climate change. In conclusion, the relationship between the United States and China is complex and multifaceted, with significant implications for global politics. The trade war, military tensions, human rights abuses, and environmental impacts of the souring relationship between the two nations will continue to shape global politics in the years to come. It is essential that both nations find a way to resolve their differences and work towards a more cooperative relationship to avoid further destabilization of the global order. The future of global politics will be shaped, in part, by the relationship between the United States and China, and it is essential that this relationship is managed in a way that promotes global peace, stability, and prosperity. Thanks for watching.